I believe that I'm a leader who is not afraid to lead. Today, I see so many people who fear leadership, probably because everything is becoming so political, and being nice is so important that I think it is beginning to cause a vast majority of our organizations to become terribly mediocre. You can even observe it going to the top in government in our country today. No matter what your political beliefs are, we see leadership that lacks leadership in terms of being too aware of how they come across to the media, how they come across politically, trying to get the votes, trying for something that is a more hidden agenda than it is to lead an organization or a government or an agency. I also, as a leader, I also believe that leadership involves a lot of plain old rolling up your sleeves work. It's hard work. And often I think people get into leadership thinking it's going to be highly prestigious, and that's how they proceed. And one of the first things I learned long ago was important to leadership was to leave the ego as far behind as possible. And that's not easy to do. We all have good-sized egos, but if you can remember to focus on the work, focus on the people, focus on the mission, and not on yourself and your own ego and pushing ahead for yourself, then it makes life a little easier in terms of bearing up with the demands of a leadership position. Sometimes you have to have leaders, or all the time really, you have to have leaders who are very courageous and hardworking in order to get the work accomplished and to lead others and allow others to feel confident in following. So I think that's who I am as a leader. I try to be mission oriented. I try to have the courage to lead, and I know I work pretty hard at what I do. I'm probably I was in the military for a long, long time, and I remember one of my sergeants over lunch one day looked at me and he said, "Colonel Wynd, I believe you're more of a mule rather than a stallion." And he meant it in a nice way. And I said, I think you're right. I'm a hardworking mule. I don't really have a need to be a stallion. Guiding principles as a leader, of course, as I just mentioned, courage, honesty, transparency, leaving the ego behind, caring for what you do, having a passion for what you do. Those are some of the guiding principles I try to follow as a leader. Again, not always easy, but I try to keep those guiding principles in mind, particularly the honesty and transparency. And I suppose politically, I'm too honest and too transparent at times. So I just have to really remember the courage part. How do these principles guide me? Have changed me during the pandemic? Was that the question? Mm-hmm. I think especially during a crisis like the pandemic, these principles continue to be really important. However, probably again, the principle of courage is certainly being challenged at this point. People are very, very anxious, very stressed. They come across at times just downright angry. And so again, it takes a lot of courage to face those people who are dealing with tough times and not take it personally. Another thing is I have really high standards, but I'm finding that those standards have to be flexed in time of crisis. And so we can't really do our best remotely. We can't do our best in working with others. And in my job, I have to counsel when people aren't doing so well. And that's hard to do remotely. So I just have to tell myself that sometimes those high standards have to be not lowered, but maybe stretched a bit in terms of flexibility. And I've seen some of my faculty who have very high standards and they cannot flex. And it really is causing them a great deal of trouble because they keep insisting on what was normal before March of 2020, and it just can't be done. There's so much that has changed and has to change. So flexibility is really needed right now because we don't really know how this pandemic is going to turn out. We don't know how it will pan out. We don't know how it will end or if it will end. I'm hopeful that a vaccine will cause it to end like it's done many of our other epidemics and pandemics, but we have yet to really see a near future for a vaccine. The thing we do know, though, is that business as usual is gone. And it's probably not going to reappear at any time soon. So no doubt a new normal, as everybody says, will arise. And we've just got to be flexible to go with it. It's very difficult and very challenging and very stressful, but it's what we have to do. Again, I would have to stress that flexibility keeps you sane. Even when that flexibility is challenged extensively, we have some huge issues to deal with in the School of Nursing. When we shut down, all of our clinical experiences shut down for our students. So we had to really flex and wait until the hospital especially opened up again to allow our students in. And so we had to find extra faculty, extra sites, because we couldn't go back to all of the sites we had been, where we had been placed or where we had placed students. So that was really a huge issue that required flexibility on the part of everybody, but it also required a lot of exquisite planning. And we had a team in the School of Nursing led by our dean who really did an excellent job with that. But it was, she led it, she really led it in terms of asking lots of questions, holding regular meetings with a return to learn team. But I would say it was, especially the undergraduate program director. I have an adjunct coordinator who helps me with the adjunct faculty, and the three of us really worked to scramble to get faculty. Our clinical course leaders also helped with that, but when it came to getting faculty, it was on my shoulders to ask our full-time faculty to fill in where they could. And that was tough because a lot of them had not taught in clinical for a long time. A lot of them did not want, they felt that they had done their job and they didn't want to do any more, but the vast majority of our faculty really stepped up to the plate, and it was great to see. Wow. So we had a lot of faculty step in. I just sent out a commendation email today with a slide program that thanked all of them for stepping up and going above and beyond to help our students. Another thing I learned is in addition to really being flexible and having a good plan, was to have a sense of humor. You got to have a sense of humor. And the undergraduate program director and I, and Tammy, we would call each other when we just needed to vent. And that was such a stress release. I hope you found it to be too, but you really need somebody like that where you can just be totally honest about how this is going and the stress involved. And then we would laugh about it. We tried to have, we tried to keep our senses of humor, even when it was difficult.
Absolutely.
I think probably the examples that I would, that come really to mind would be leaders who are attempting to communicate as much as possible. And our dean does that very well. We get tired of all the meetings, but they're really necessary. We have a return to learn meeting. We have other meetings like operations meetings and academic meetings. And then every Friday, she has an hour-long check-in meeting. And that check-in meeting, it's right in the middle of the day. So you think, oh man, I'd like to get this other work done, but you check in and she's always got a prepared, structured presentation. And then she lets everybody just ask questions, communicate. And she does that so that at the moment, we are as clear as possible with what's going on in the state, in the university, and in the school. And she's very honest with us. If things change, she keeps us just totally informed. And that is so important. I've really noted that. So communication and information really helps to cut down on the confusion. And I think it's done very well in terms of reducing any of the rumors. When we first got into this, everybody wanted to know when we would get back in the college, when we would get back to the university. When are we going to get back to the school? When can we resume our clinicals? And those were the questions over and over again. And we just kept saying, we don't know, but we will let you know as soon as we know. So she remained positive and very communicative so that we were informed at all times. And she would tell us when things changed, and it's always frustrating with all the different changes that take place, but that's what you got to do over and over again, just keep communicating. I would tell myself to wash out my coffee mug because I left it sitting on my desk and I imagine it's still there growing all kinds of interesting things. So I'll probably go in next Tuesday and check it out. So, but seriously, I tell myself to create a strict schedule in the morning, especially, and pursue exercise and good nutrition, and keep that up. Make it a very, very strict routine. Get the daily chores done, get them under my belt, and try to be terribly organized. Because at least at first, I would get up and just sit at my computer, and before I'd know it was 4 p.m. and I hadn't gotten dressed, I hadn't gotten cleaned up, I hadn't exercised, I barely ate any meals, and I had to turn that around as quickly as possible. Yeah. So I would have told myself, remember this is, or think about what's coming and be ready, because a strict routine and good organization will help you in the long run be able to flex and meet the changes that are coming. The reason I would sit at my computer is because email, phone messages, I just couldn't even get away for a while. So being prepared by a certain time in the morning and sitting down and then dealing with all the issues that come up in as flexible a manner as possible, that's what I would have told myself going back to March. Being prepared and being organized is somewhat agonizing, but it really pays off in the end, because then you can feel good about what it is you have to do. If it means flexing some standards, asking people to do tough things, it allows you to still be positive because you know you've prepared yourself for the day, for the week. And then when you do need to make the changes or do the tough, have the tough conversations, then you can do that because you feel a little stronger, I guess it is.